everybody. This is Tammy Mosier, and I'm with the Journey Coach. I help professionals who are pursuing advanced degrees get organized, stay productive, and through the dissertation so they can start this new life that they want. One of the things I wanted to talk about today, and I've been asked to cover, is how I use Notion for my research library. Deal with articles, reading divided by taking notes, and going through that process. It took me a while to figure out how I wanted to do this. I have some past videos on using the library and pulling in articles, but I've refined that. Part of what I've done is create different templates for different types of work that would be placed in the library to help me build understanding of material. Creating this process allows me to work with my material effectively. And so I'm going to show today how I would process a typical article and walk you through how this would look for me. The start would really be doing the search and getting the articles. I still am a believer in putting those articles in a structured file system on my hard drive. So if I was a student, I would have a file folder for each, and then I would have that broken down by weeks or modules, depending on how the class was structured. Within that, I would have an article repository, if you will, its own file system. I could go, this was week one, here were the articles for week one material or module one material. When I'm starting a new class, I set up that structure and then I download every article that they assign for those different modules and weeks and go ahead and get those placed in the files. That means I have access to them no matter where I am, so I can read and process as works with my schedule. Because again, remember, I deal with professionals who are pursuing advanced education. So this isn't your typical PhD student where they're a doctoral assistant, they teach a few classes, maybe they work in someone's lab and they're a full-time student. I'm working primarily with people that, man, they're working a 40, 60-hour week and they are taking classes, or they're at the stage where they're working on a dissertation and doing research. So it's got a little bit of a different time element to it. And, when am I going to actually schedule this and get this work done and integrate it into my overall daily workload? And having all those files and all of those articles downloaded at the beginning, one, that means that I know that they're accessible. And if I run into any problem downloading, I can let the professor know so I can get that material. Two, it makes it accessible because it can be in my Dropbox or wherever that might be, and I can access it at any time. Although I'm going to move it into Notion, so that's really where I work with it. But there's a backup now. If I'm not a student and like me, I'm a professor or I work and write and need to pull material to do that, then I'll do a search at a time and pull material out of the databases, and I'll have folders set up for the research project. So if it's an expert project, a leadership project, a team project, then those will get pulled and put in a file system for that, and then I'll pull them into Notion. So that's how it really starts, is through that kind of culling process of doing the searches, finding the articles, and doing a quick evaluation, which I have a video on how I evaluate to even see if I'm going to pull it into my library. And then it gets downloaded and it'll get processed. Once I've got some articles in the queue, I'll process them into the library. And so now I'm going to walk you through what that would look like. So this is my library, and this is actually on my weekly feature page. So, I've got this research section set up at the bottom of my weekly planner, and I can just come down and work in this area at any time I want to. On my main page, the library also is linked there, my kind of hub. So in either place, I can easily get to the library and work with material. So I would start by just clicking new, and I'm going to open it up. And so first, here are my templates. And so I can make a choice about, and they are different. There's similarities and there's differences in the templates. I'm going to go over the research article to give you an idea of how I would process those. And then I can show you some of the templates. So I would click that template. It will populate out and it'll give me my start. I'll walk you through that here in a second. All of them have a navigation. I can click key results. This takes me down to the key results section. I really like the table of contents feature in Notion and the ability to set this up so I can easily navigate this, especially once it gets full of material. So I'll walk you down through what I have on this page, and then we'll process one article so you can kind of get a feel for what I do with that. I have the link to my action database, Pivotal Actions, and my notebook. So the library is where I put the articles and the original processing of just that article. The notebook is where I start to summarize and pull together material from multiple articles, which then starts to morph into what would be used in a paper or a dissertation, right? It gives me that deeper understanding of how material actually works together to form a picture of what's going on. And so the notebook is where I put that, and I have templates in there for that, which I may give a quick overview of that, but I'll do something separate on the notebook later. I copy and paste the abstract right here, and technically this part might not be necessary because I also embed the PDF, which means the abstract is right down here at the bottom. But there's something about just having that copy and pasted here as a quick toggle, especially when all these other sections get filled out, so I don't need to go down to the PDF. I try not to touch the PDF much. I embed it here just for ease of use, but you wouldn't really have to do that either. It depends on what process you want to put in place. Then when I read the article, I've got sections here to fill out. Now, I don't always fill out all of these sections because I don't necessarily find them valuable, and I can always go back and read the article. But what I'm personally really trying to do is make sure that I don't need to go back and touch that article multiple times, that I really do have a good overview of the article, the different components of it, and then that helps me understand how it would fit into the broader relevance to my research. So I don't just pick random articles. If it's going into here, it's because it's part of a research project. It's something I do need to use. There's a component of the article that's relevant to my research. And what I want to know is, what is it about this article and this population that's relevant to me? So characteristics of the population, source for the study, inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, relevance to my research, additional thoughts. Then the method. What's the general and specific methodology? Data analysis method, usefulness to the design of my research. So how does it actually connect to that, or is there anything useful? Instruments and measures that are used in this study, and any additional thoughts. Key results, findings that are useful for my research, support or counterpoint to what I'm doing. And I can add, if there's graphs or something like that I like, I've been known to add some snapshots in this area. Statistical analysis that's interesting to me. In their key results, what did they pull out or focus on in their analysis that I find of interest? Concerns, issues, questions about the results that they have, something I'm not sure about how they did it, or validity or reliability or anything like that that comes up, when you're looking at results. And then additional thoughts. And then their discussion. Points that support my research, points that are counter to my research or views, points that I don't agree with and or a question and why, and then additional thoughts. So as you can see, I created a template here that allows me to really pull out from the study things that are necessary or useful. I also have a place up here that if a gap is identified in this work, I can type that in here so I can really kind of go, this is a research gap that this particular study identified. Now, whether I'll continue to find that or not, and I would probably put this as a backlink into my index system so I could see multiple studies that identified that same gap in research. So this is an overview of what I pulled together. So this is where I would actually embed the PDF. I'm just doing a slash, and I'm going to embed a PDF, and I'm going to choose a file, and I'm pulling a random file right now. So let me just look. We'll pull this one. What I like about this and using this particular method is that I actually now have the PDF embedded here. I can go in here and reread this article at any time, and it makes it easy for me to see that. And I already have those in another spot anyway, so I copy the abstract and put that up here because that gives me just a quick at the top, easy to see. And then I process the other parts up in this section. I look at this, and let's see what the year is. 2017. I use the APA or AMA is typically what I work in. And so I just start with APA is usually what I put all this in. And I put the citation for the article as the title. That allows me to backlink by citation when I'm writing in the notebook. And so it becomes a really cool way to kind of connect everything together, but it's not cumbersome. Then I take the title, and I have the place for the title right here. I just fill in the rest of this. I don't really have a value. Those are stars until I read it to really see what value it has for my research. Priority. Is it the reading list? Is it a priority to get processed, make notes finished? How much time do I think it's going to take to process? The author and presenters. And here I've got this kind of list, and I do this for a reason. I like to be able to then do a search by author. I can take this Erickson, click on it. Create that, and then get the first name here. That way, if I wanted to do a search for or filter by Erickson in, I could get all articles by them. And I really like that a lot. That helps me in terms of kind of keeping track of what's going on and how that looks. Now here's the reference. And what I like about the reference is that as I'm pulling articles, I can put that in there. But what this allows me to do is if I'm not using a cite as you write setup, then I can set this up in a way that allows me to just copy this reference off and put it on a reference list. And this can be really helpful, especially when you're working in discussion boards and things of that nature, and you just need a couple of references and you're able to kind of just pull this over and make it work for you. And so let's go back down here because we need to get a little bit more of this information. This is 26.2 Quality Management in Healthcare. So let me find publisher. This is really where you're going to find your journals list. It's a peer-reviewed article. I don't remember the database because this came from the files I already had. 28, I think I said 4. Let's go down here and see. No, 26.2. 26.2, 63 through 69. I didn't see a DOI number. So this may not have a DOI number associated with it. Okay. You can start to see how this is starting to kind of pull together. This is a qualitative. If I go back up here to methods, then qualitative is what I would choose. And I've got some, case study, ethnography, general. So basically the idea is here is that I can just go like this and know it's qualitative and it's general qualitative. Or I can go quantitative, it's quantitative correlational, retrospective, it's implementation research, different tests that would be a part of it. What this allows me to do is start to get a really clear, tracking of my material. I can use, the reference, copy and paste it. I can backlink throughout my notebook and my library using this citation, which would connect it back to here. And then I also have the citation easy to see so that if I'm citing and writing, I can do that easily as well. I would generally put the database, so where I actually pulled it from. So I am going to just say with this, it was probably PubMed because that's generally where I find quality management in healthcare. And then I track search queries. If you're working on a dissertation research or working on any kind of paper, tracking your search queries and the database can be very helpful. And when you look at it, when it was added to your library, should give you the date. So for instance, if I was putting a search query in here, just as an example, I might put something like quality improvement, healthcare, and then my criteria would have been 2010 through 2020. And what that lets me do is, let's say I'm working on a dissertation, or we're almost ready to send an article in, but we've been working on the research for 2 years, and we ran this query, but the date we ran it was a year ago, and we want to refresh our literature and make sure nothing new has come out. I usually try to process and add to my library within a week of when I do the searches. What that lets me do is we ran this, let's say that said 2020. And I was right now processing. Well, we have another year. We ran it 2010 to 2020. We looked at it in February of 2020. And so now we need to really rerun this search, quality improvement in healthcare and PubMed, from February 2020 to current January 2021. And now I can see if any new literature has been established that would be relevant to our study and our article that we're writing, or our dissertation, without having to rerun and go, I don't know how I actually found this literature. I'm not sure how I searched. I don't know how to refresh my literature and make sure that it's up to date. We just have to start all over and see if we get new stuff. Well, that's a waste of your time. So by putting in here the search query and the years looked at and the database, it's a really quick, I need to refresh my literature, jump in, get it done. And because this is part of the database, I can just go to the table view of my library, do a filter based on what project they're associated with. So the research activity link down here, I can put the research project it's associated with. And so then I can just go for this research project, filter by that. Now I'm going to look at the search queries and I'm going to rerun them and refresh them. It just streamlines that process. It eliminates some of the angst associated with, I'm going to send this in. One of my dissertation committee members or a reviewer for the journal is going to call me on the fact there were 2 new studies that came out 2 months ago that either support my point, disprove my point, or a counterpoint I should have addressed. Whatever it is, there's angst associated with this. I missed something. But, no one has time to go back and totally rerun and then refilter and relook through everything and go, do I already have this? Do I not? This is how I do it. That was a long explanation, but you get the drift now. Once I've read the article and I've processed it, and so I've filled in all these areas, then I come up here and write a quick summary. If I say this is valuable, so let's say I'm saying for this research, it's a 4. What do I want to summarize that if I was only looking at the table or a card, the gallery view, something like that, what would I want to summarize to help me understand the value I see in this? And that's what I put in the summary. So it can be anything from a sentence to a short paragraph. But the goal here too is that I could go to my library, I can filter by research project and by value. And so I can go all the articles that have a value of 4 or 5 with this project I want to see. And then I can read the summaries. And that gives me a quick refresher, and that can help me too then go, I want to take these 3 articles that have similar summaries associated with their value, and now I'm going to take those into my notebook and work in my notebook. You're setting up a structure, right? So one, it's a structure you should be able to follow every time you process an article, but it also allows you then to really search the database and take good notes. I'm a big proponent, and some of you have heard me talk about the Cite as you write software, making sure you're using Mendeley or EndNote or Citavi. Cite is the closest reference management software to what you can set up and do in Notion. Because when I get to writing, what I can do then is pull material from my notebook and pull those notes up. And as I write, those notes I've got filtered where they come up as I want them in my writing. And Citavi, you can do that to a degree. Citavi's the closest because with Citavi, you can take clear notes, you can integrate material. All the other Cite as you write softwares don't really give you that capability. The problem with Citavi for me is I'm a Mac user, and Citavi is a Windows-based program, and it's a little more challenging to run even in the Parallels environment for me because it's not native. There are almost always issues with it working appropriately with Word when I'm using Parallels. I can just use a native Mac program. So I still highly recommend that, especially for people who are Windows users. If you're Mac users, that's kind of a different animal. But I really like Notion for this use. And the other thing is, if you want some additional information, you can certainly add properties to pull that into here and have it available to you and really be able to kind of structure this in a way that makes sense for your particular area and what you're trying to keep track of. I often, for this reference, you'll notice I don't have a property for volume, issue, page numbers. And the reason for that is because I don't really see a reason why I would ever search by volume numbers, issues, or page numbers. But I need them, but I need it for the reference. So since I make sure the full reference is there, so I can just copy and paste it out if I need to, that's where that information lives. It doesn't need its own property. That's why it's not there. As I do this, I really get a better handle on my overall library, my material, what's happening, and it allows me to process it in a cleaner way. The side as you write programs, you have your PDFs there, but where they're limited is you've got your PDF. Some of them you can do like little post-it notes that kind of exist related to the PDF, but they're random notes. They're not structured necessarily. Or you can highlight the PDF, but how do you find the highlights that are relevant? What I like about this is it just gives me a really clear view of what I'm dealing with. And I've already pulled out relevant points, and that makes it where I don't have to necessarily touch the article again unless I just want to look for something specific. I hope this is helpful and starts to give you perspective on how you can expand how you use the library function, that database, for research material and keeping your library where you can really use it and use it effectively. And so I'm going to pull this back out to this example here for a minute. This is just a table. You can see the status here, but when you look, like this is, let's go to the Belmont report. This is a government report or white paper. This has the Belmont report embedded. When you go here and look at these different templates, but like for this, because it's a white paper, it's who's the audience for the report. Describe the population for the report. And over here in the methods section, there's two ways that a government report, gray literature, or white paper can go. So click here if this is a study that collects data from a sample. Click here if this is a report about a topic focused on literature, not a study. So if I click that, it gives me this set of questions, right? And if I click this one, then I get a different set of questions based on what's actually happening in this government report or white paper. What I've tried to do is really walk my way through and create a template that works for that type of literature so that I know it is closer to what I really need to be looking at. So here's a book or book chapter. You write a summary of your book, the discussion points that are useful for the book, and then general notes. It looks different than what you see in the peer-reviewed article. What do you need to pull out of a dissertation if you're reviewing a dissertation? Well, you're going to pull out similar information to a research article, but the general notes have moved up here. Why is this dissertation of value to me? Why am I really looking at it, using it? Maybe it's because we're working together on your dissertation and I had you pull 2 to 4 dissertations that are examples that match your methodology or examples of tackling a similar theoretical framework, or you just read them and they're very well written. They're good examples of how a dissertation can flow. And so that's why it's of value to you. You've got specific reasons, and that way you can highlight them and make sure that you make note of that, so you don't just have this dissertation floating around and you have no clue why you've got it there. I'm going to stop here. I hope you found this useful in how to set this up, what you can do with it, how it can look. And next time I'll get into how I utilize the library in a note and how those notes integrate the backlinks to really allow me to move easily from the library and the notebook and the material and start to structure it where I can write easier. It was great to get an opportunity to talk with you. If you'd like to see some different approaches, or there's something about this in particular you'd like me to explore a little bit more, please feel free to make a note at the bottom and leave me a message, and I will certainly get back and look at that for a future video. In the meantime, have a great week, and I'll talk to you later.